Good afternoon, Kevin Schein, Fraud.net. I want to thank everyone here for taking some time to listen to our story today. It's very important to us. And a huge shout out to the teams at the Venture Center and the ICDA. Their generosity and support made today possible. If there's any questions about our name and that hasn't been made clear yet, Fraud.net, we focus on preventing fraud, not facilitating fraud, just to remove any concerns of the audience. But seriously, I want to talk about our friend Barbara here. Barbara's unhappy. Last week or the week before, she fell victim to an email wire fraud, netting fraudsters nearly $400,000. Unfortunately, she's not alone. Even with today's cybersecurity tools and software, protecting U.S. consumers and businesses from malware and email phishing attempts, the FBI estimates that last year alone, fraudsters netted nearly $2 billion in email wire fraud scams. Cumulatively, over the last 3 years globally, that's a $26 billion problem. On top of that, hackers are really good at what they do. Last year, acquiring over 164 million pieces of US consumer and business data, providing that to fraudsters who have access to mine, to yours, to your customers' usernames, emails, passwords, and other PII. And when we look at the data, this trend is not slowing down. So what does this all mean in terms of data leakage to you and to your customers? Fraudsters are acquiring all of this data. They're assembling this information to commit crime digitally. Credit card abuse, loan application fraud, account takeover, creating synthetic identities. You guys have probably felt and seen a lot of this. And they're doing this all from behind the comfort of their own screens, their computers. Fortunately, Fraud.net helps banks like you assess both digital transactions and behaviors in real time across payment types. So we're focusing on risk assessing transactions around ACHs, cards, both credit and debit, checks, deposits, mobile internet banking, sort of across that payment stack or across the payment rails. We currently support around 150 clients around the world. These banks and other organizations are using our case management software, our real-time analytics, our data mining capabilities, our data enrichment, and our custom machine learned models to leverage an end-to-end fraud stack across the payment rails. On any given month, collectively across our customers, we're saving them and their customers around $25 million in reduced fraud losses. But for purposes of today, I want to focus a little bit on the wire transfers and that phenomenon. And why wire transfers? We've been fortunate through the ICDA and the Venture Center to speak to nearly 75 banks and other organizations. And with all of this data leakage and concerns around business email compromise, wire transfer frauds and scams are one of their top 3 concerns. It's to the point where some banks no longer accept wire transfer instructions over email, requiring their customers to come into a branch location or facilitate that over a telephone. While I can respect the need to mitigate those risks, it does degrade the customer experience and drive up operating costs. To that end, Fraud.net has developed an email add-in which resides natively within your Outlook and is downloadable from the Microsoft AppSource store. There's no integration. So what you're seeing on the screen here, this is reminiscent or an example of one of your employees who's responsible for facilitating or reviewing inbound wire requests. Now, in order to improve this user experience, you'll notice that there's a little logo down at the bottom right within the email. That's the Fraud.net logo. You can click on that and a tile will magically appear within the email client, giving you a risk score driven by machine learning and leveraging our collective intelligence network, highlighting an associate set of alerts that are popped off based off a rules engine that we're maintaining in the background, and then facilitating permissioning, approving or declining. All of this is indexable, searchable, archivable. You will note that the first alert actually says sender is not a known contact. So we're referencing all of that data in your address book and your emails, and that would have prevented Barbara's loss. And more importantly, there was a bank at the Venture Center earlier this week, it would have prevented a loss that they recently experienced. Now, if you need access to manage all of the rules and customize that experience, all of that can be leveraged in our case management portal. Case management, investigative piece, the alerts, the rules engine, that sort of end-to-end full-stack platform to manage your fraud solution, whether that be AML, BSA, whether that be cards, debits, credits, deposits. We're really agnostic regarding the payment type of the product that we're trying to support there. But tying it back to wire transfers and digging into the ability to add, delete, edit these rules all in real time, pulling up an alert here, which if there's a transaction over $10,000, we can automatically send that into a queue. So this is about automation of all of these policies and procedures. And again, as I wrap up this demonstration part of this, the Fraud.net app, again, no integration. It's simply clicking out of the Microsoft App Store, and it's free of charge. Now, the power horse behind what we do is this concept of collective intelligence, collaboration amongst all of our clients. Fraud.net is facilitating real-time, anonymized data sharing. So we're helping all of our customers risk assess all these events, card transactions, loan application, credit card applications, and they're making decisions, and these decisions have outcomes, fraud or not fraud. Those outcomes are fed back over to Fraud.net and feed into our collective intelligence, so that across the consortium of participants, the next time we see an email address, a phone number, a device, a mailing address, the first question we ask the system is, have we seen this before? And has there been fraud? Not just within your own walls, but collectively across all of our 150 customers. So it's the power of that network that is driving fraud protection at scale. To give you some sense of the scope, we're actively tracking 1 billion digital personas around the world and 10 million fraudsters in real time. Now, when you think about how Fraud.net works with companies like you, we're currently supporting consumer banks, commercial banks, private wealth, wealth managers, and even some account and payroll individuals within the organization. Now, as we wrap this up and as you contemplate how to work with Fraud.net, the email add-in is a low-touch, high-value, low-cost way to engage us initially. If your needs become more complex and you want ownership over your fraud stack, we can service you there as well too. Alternatively, if all you want to do is tie into our data networks, we can facilitate that as well. Again, the email add-in is free of charge and requires no integration. And I can confidently say that if Barbara was using that email add-in, as I showed you earlier, she'd be happy today as she wouldn't have fallen victim to fraud. As I wrap up, I want to say thank you and a special shout out to all the banks that made their way down to Little Rock and engaged with us personally. I can honestly say that they have impacted our product roadmap, and elements of what we've shown you today are a direct reflection of that. Come visit us at the ThinkTech Hub and learn how to secure access to our email add-in app. Thank you.